The town of Ravenswood lay shrouded in a thick, unyielding fog, as if the very air conspired to keep its secrets hidden. Nestled between jagged hills and dense forests, it was a place where time seemed to stand still, and whispers of old legends clung to every cobblestone street. At the heart of this eerie town stood the ancient Ravenswood Library, a towering structure of weathered stone and stained glass, its shelves filled with centuries of knowledge until one fateful morning. Eleanor Graves, the library's sharp and ever-curious librarian, arrived to find every single book gone. The shelves, once brimming with stories and secrets, stood barren, as if the knowledge they held had simply evaporated into the mist. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint creak of the library's old wooden floors. On her desk, Eleanor found a single, cryptic note. "The shelves are empty, but the truth is hidden." Her heart raced as she realized this was no ordinary theft. Something far darker, far older, was at play, and Eleanor, with her keen mind and unshakable determination, was about to uncover a mystery that would change Ravenswood and her life forever. As the fog outside seemed to press closer against the library's windows, Eleanor stepped further into the cavernous silence of the Ravenswood Library. Her footsteps echoed faintly, each one a sharp reminder of the emptiness that now filled the space. The towering shelves, once heavy with the weight of countless books, stood stark and bare, their wooden frames casting long, skeletal shadows across the floor. The air was thick with the faint, musty scent of old paper, a ghostly reminder of what had been lost. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat as she scanned the room, her mind racing to make sense of the impossible. Her eyes fell on her desk, where a single torn page lay waiting. It was a fragment from an obscure book, its edges jagged as if ripped in haste. The words on the page were faded, but one phrase stood out: "The key lies in the forgotten." Eleanor's fingers trembled as she picked it up, her mind already piecing together the implications. This wasn't just a theft, it was a message. A chill ran down her spine as she whispered to herself, who would do this, and why? The library, once a sanctuary of knowledge, now felt like a labyrinth of secrets, and Eleanor knew she was standing at the edge of something far darker than she could have imagined. As the weight of the torn page settled in her hands, Eleanor knew she couldn't unravel this mystery alone. Stepping out of the library, the fog clung to the streets of Ravenswood like a shroud, wrapping the town in an eerie stillness. The air was heavy with secrets, and Eleanor felt the weight of every pair of eyes that followed her as she made her way to the heart of the town. The whispers of the townsfolk seemed to echo the unease she carried within her. Her first stop was Harold Murray's cottage, tucked away at the edge of the woods. Harold, the reclusive historian, was known for his obsession with the town's past. His home was a labyrinth of dusty tomes and yellowed maps, and when Eleanor knocked, he answered with a wary expression. "The library's empty, you say?" He muttered, his voice low and gravelly. "Perhaps it's for the best. Some things are better left buried." His words hung in the air, cryptic and unsettling, leaving Eleanor with more questions than answers. Next, she visited Margaret Dawes, the cheerful owner of the town's only cafe. Margaret's smile was warm, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of unease, that didn't quite match her friendly demeanor. "Oh, Eleanor, it's such a shame about the library," she said, pouring a cup of tea with trembling hands. "I've always loved that place, but you know, there are stories, old stories about a curse. Maybe it's best not to dig too deep." Her laughter was too quick, too forced, and Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that Margaret was hiding something. Finally, Eleanor sought out Edward Hastings, the wealthy businessman who had recently donated a small fortune to the library. His mansion loomed over the town, a stark contrast to the modest homes around it. Edward greeted her with a polite smile, but his nervous energy was palpable. "I'm as shocked as you are," he said, pacing the room. "I gave that money to preserve the library, not to see it emptied. But these things happen, don't they? Sometimes the past has a way of catching up with us." His words were smooth, but his hands fidgeted with a gold pocket watch, betraying his calm exterior. As Eleanor left Edward's mansion, the town seemed to close in around her. The fog thickened, and the whispers of the townsfolk grew louder, carrying tales of a curse that had plagued Ravenswood for centuries. The library, they said, was built on secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. With each step, Eleanor felt the weight of those secrets pressing down on her, and she knew that the truth was closer than she thought. But in a town where everyone had something to hide, finding it would be no easy task. As the shadows deepened within the library, Eleanor's determination burned brighter than ever. The torn page had led her here, to the oldest desk in the building, its wood worn smooth by centuries of use. Running her fingers along its edges, she felt a slight irregularity, a tiny groove that didn't belong. With a sharp intake of breath, she pressed it, and a hidden compartment sprang open. Inside lay a folded piece of parchment, brittle with age. Unfolding it carefully, she revealed a map of the library's basement, its surface marked with strange, intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Eleanor's heart raced as she studied the map. The symbols were unlike anything she'd seen before, a blend of ancient runes and cryptic patterns. But her years of studying obscure texts gave her an edge. She recognized fragments of an old language, one tied to the town's earliest days. Piece by piece, she began to decipher the markings, her mind racing to connect the dots. The map hinted at a secret room, hidden deep beneath the library, a place no one had spoken of, no one had seen. As she worked, the silence of the library was broken by a faint creaking sound, like the groan of old wood under pressure. It came from the direction of the basement. Eleanor froze, her eyes darting toward the darkened staircase. The sound faded, leaving only the echo of her own heartbeat in her ears. She glanced back at the map, her resolve hardening. Whatever lay beneath the library, it was calling to her, pulling her deeper into the mystery. With the map clutched tightly in her hands, Eleanor felt a surge of purpose. The symbols weren't just clues, they were a challenge, a puzzle meant for someone with her knowledge, her curiosity. She knew the risks, but the thought of uncovering the truth outweighed her fear. The library had always been her sanctuary, but now it felt like a labyrinth, each corner hiding secrets waiting to be unearthed. As she prepared to descend into the basement, the creaking sound returned, louder this time, as if the building itself were warning her to turn back. But Eleanor Graves was not one to retreat. The map was her guide, and the truth was her destination. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it. With the map firmly in hand and her flashlight cutting through the thick darkness, Eleanor descended the creaking staircase into the library's basement. The air was damp and heavy, carrying the faint metallic tang of rust and the distant echo of dripping water. Each step felt like a descent into another world, the walls pressing closer as the light from above faded into shadow. The basement was a labyrinth of forgotten corners and crumbling stone, its silence broken only by the occasional groan of the old building settling around her. The first obstacle came quickly, a heavy wooden door, its surface warped with age and moisture. The lock was rusted shut, but Eleanor's determination was stronger than iron. She rummaged through her bag, pulling out a set of old keys she'd found in the librarian's desk. One by one, she tried them, her hands trembling slightly as the faint hum of an unseen mechanism filled the air. Finally, with a satisfying click, the door creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway beyond. The next challenge was a broken staircase, its steps splintered and uneven. Eleanor hesitated, her flashlight beam revealing the gaping hole where the middle steps had collapsed. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and carefully navigated the remaining stairs, her heart pounding with every precarious step. The faint humming sound grew louder as she moved deeper, a low, persistent vibration that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. It was unsettling, almost alive, but Eleanor pressed on, her curiosity outweighing her unease. At last she reached the end of the passageway, where a heavy iron door stood slightly ajar. Pushing it open, she stepped into a hidden room, its air thick with dust and the scent of aged paper. The beam of her flashlight revealed rows of untouched books, their spines cracked and faded, stacked haphazardly on sagging shelves. In the center of the room, on a small wooden table, lay a leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with the name Elias Ravenswood. Eleanor's breath caught as she approached the journal, her fingers brushing against its worn surface. This was no ordinary book. It was a piece of the library's history, a clue that could unravel the mystery of the vanished books. As she opened it, the faint humming sound seemed to fade, replaced by the soft rustle of pages turning. The journal was filled with handwritten notes, sketches, and cryptic symbols, each one a piece of the puzzle she had been searching for. The room felt alive with secrets, the weight of centuries pressing down on her shoulders, but Eleanor knew she was closer than ever to the truth. The journal was her key, and the answers it held would lead her deeper into the heart of the mystery. With the map in one hand and the journal in the other, she felt a surge of determination. The library had always been her sanctuary, but now it was something more, a place of hidden truths waiting to be uncovered. As she prepared to leave the room, the faint humming sound returned, louder now, almost as if the basement itself were alive and watching. Eleanor paused, her flashlight beam flickering slightly, and glanced back at the dusty shelves. The books seemed to whisper in the silence, their secrets just out of reach, but she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The journal was the first step, and the truth lay somewhere beyond, waiting to be found. As the weight of the journal settled in her hands, Eleanor felt the air grow colder, as if the room itself were holding its breath. She flipped through the brittle pages, her eyes scanning the faded ink of Elias Ravenswood's meticulous handwriting. The entries were a mix of personal reflections, sketches of the library's layout, and cryptic notes about a treasure hidden within its walls. One passage stood out, its words underlined with a shaky hand. The treasure was never meant to be found. It carries a curse, a warning to those who seek it. The monastery's wrath will follow any who disturb what lies beneath. Eleanor's pulse quickened as she read further. The journal detailed how the library had been built not just as a place of knowledge, but as a vault to conceal the stolen treasure, a collection of priceless artifacts taken from a nearby monastery centuries ago. The monks, enraged by the theft, had placed a curse on the treasure, vowing that anyone who sought to reclaim it would face unimaginable consequences. Eleanor's mind raced as she pieced together the implications. The stolen books, the empty shelves. It wasn't just about the books themselves. Someone was after the treasure, and the books were merely a distraction, a way to cover their tracks. She whispered to herself, her voice barely audible in the dusty silence. This isn't just about books, it's about something much older, much darker. The journal also contained sketches of strange symbols, similar to the ones she had seen on the map. They seemed to point to specific locations within the library, perhaps marking where the treasure was hidden. But there was more, a warning scrawled in the margins. The curse is real. Those who seek the treasure will be consumed by their greed, and the library will claim them. Eleanor's hands trembled as she closed the journal, her thoughts swirling with questions. Who else knew about the treasure, and why now, after all these years, had someone decided to act? She glanced around the hidden room, the rows of untouched books suddenly feeling like silent witnesses to a crime centuries in the making. With the journal clutched tightly to her chest, Eleanor knew she had to act quickly. The treasure was the key to solving the mystery, but it was also a dangerous path to tread. The curse loomed over her like a shadow, a reminder that some secrets were better left buried. Yet she couldn't turn back now. The truth was too close, and the library, her sanctuary, was counting on her to uncover it. As she stepped out of the hidden room, the faint humming sound returned, louder and more insistent than before. It seemed to follow her as she retraced her steps through the basement, a constant reminder that the library's secrets were alive and watching. Eleanor's resolve hardened. She would find the treasure, break the curse, and restore the library to its former glory. But first, she needed to confront the suspects and uncover who among them was willing to risk everything for greed. The journal had revealed the heart of the mystery, but the danger was far from over. As Eleanor climbed the broken staircase, the weight of the curse pressing on her shoulders, she knew the next step would be the most perilous of all. With the journal's revelations burning in her mind, Eleanor knew it was time to confront the suspects once more. The treasure's dark history had changed everything, and she needed to see who among them might be hiding more than they let on. First, she sought out Harold Murray, the reclusive historian who had always seemed more comfortable with dusty tomes than with people. When she questioned him about his whereabouts on the night the books vanished, he claimed he had been deep in research, studying the library's history. But when Eleanor pressed him for proof, he faltered. "I don't keep records of every hour I spend," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. His evasiveness raised a red flag. Why would someone so meticulous about history have no evidence of his work? Next, Eleanor turned to Margaret Dawes, the cheerful cafe owner, whose friendliness had always felt a little too practiced. This time, Margaret's smile wavered. She admitted she had been struggling financially, her cafe barely staying afloat. "I've had to work late, even after the library closed," she confessed, her voice trembling. "But I swear I didn't take anything." Eleanor noted the desperation in her tone. Could Margaret's financial troubles have driven her to seek the treasure, hoping it would solve her problems? Finally, there was Edward Hastings, the wealthy businessman who had donated generously to the library. He greeted Eleanor with his usual charm, but his demeanor shifted when she mentioned the treasure. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said, his voice tight, yet his hands betrayed him, fidgeting with his cufflinks as he spoke. Eleanor noticed the faint sheen of sweat on his forehead. Why would a man of his stature be so nervous about a centuries-old curse? As Eleanor pieced together their stories, the inconsistencies became impossible to ignore. Harold's lack of proof, Margaret's financial desperation, Edward's uncharacteristic unease. Each of them had a motive, and each of them had opportunity. But who among them was bold enough or desperate enough to risk awakening the curse? The deeper Eleanor dug, the more tangled the web became. The treasure wasn't just a prize. It was a test of greed, fear, and ambition. And as she prepared to confront the truth, she couldn't shake the feeling that the library itself was watching, its ancient walls holding secrets far darker than she had imagined. With the suspects' alibis unraveling, Eleanor knew the next step would be the most dangerous yet. The treasure was close, she could feel it, but so was the curse, its shadow growing longer with every passing moment. The library's secrets were no longer buried in the past. They were alive, waiting to claim their next victim. As the pieces of the puzzle began to align, Eleanor felt a surge of both excitement and dread. The journal's revelations had led her to the secret room, and now, as she carefully examined one of the ancient books she had found there, her fingers brushed against something unusual, a hidden compartment. Her breath caught as she pried it open, revealing a small, rusted key and a note, its edges frayed with age. The words on the note were simple yet chilling. "The truth lies beneath the oak tree." Eleanor's mind raced. The oak tree in the library's courtyard had always been a quiet, unassuming presence, its gnarled branches stretching toward the sky like silent sentinels. But now it seemed to hold the final piece of the mystery. She clutched the key tightly, her heart pounding as she stepped out into the courtyard. The fog had thickened, swirling around her like a living thing, muffling the sounds of the town and wrapping the world in an eerie stillness. With each step toward the tree, Eleanor's emotions warred within her. Excitement bubbled up at the thought of uncovering the truth, but it was tempered by a growing unease. The curse mentioned in Elias Ravenswood's journal loomed large in her mind, its warning echoing in her thoughts. What if the treasure wasn't just a prize, but a trap? What if the truth was more dangerous than she could imagine? The oak tree loomed ahead, its roots twisting into the earth like ancient fingers. Eleanor knelt beside it, her hands trembling as she began to dig. The soil was damp and heavy, the fog clinging to her skin as she worked. The key felt cold in her pocket, a constant reminder of what lay ahead. With every scoop of dirt, the tension grew, the air around her seeming to hum with anticipation. As she dug deeper, the fog seemed to close in, wrapping the courtyard in a shroud of mystery. The library's windows glowed faintly in the distance, their light barely piercing the gloom. Eleanor's pulse quickened, her mind racing with possibilities. What would she find beneath the tree? The treasure, the stolen books, or something far more sinister? The final clue was within reach, but so was the curse, and as Eleanor's fingers brushed against something solid in the earth, she couldn't shake the feeling that the library's secrets were no longer buried. They were waiting, just beneath the surface, ready to be uncovered. As the fog thickened around her, Eleanor's fingers finally closed around the edge of something solid buried beneath the oak tree. With a sharp intake of breath, she pulled it free, a small, weathered chest, its surface caked with dirt. Her hands trembled as she brushed away the soil, revealing intricate carvings that seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light. The key from the hidden compartment fit perfectly into the lock, and with a soft click, the chest opened. Inside, nestled among the stolen books, was the treasure, a collection of ancient artifacts, their surfaces gleaming faintly despite the gloom. But before Eleanor could fully process her discovery, a voice cut through the silence, sharp and cold. "I should have known you'd find it." She turned to see Edward Hastings stepping out of the fog, his face shadowed, but his eyes gleaming with a mix of desperation and anger. He took a step closer, his voice low and bitter. "You think you're so clever, but you don't know what's at stake." Eleanor stood slowly, her mind racing. She clutched the journal tightly, her only weapon against the man now advancing toward her. "You took the books," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "You wanted the treasure, but you didn't think about the curse, did you?" Edward's laugh was harsh, devoid of humor. "The curse, that's just a story, Eleanor. A fairy tale to scare people away. I needed this treasure to save my business, to save everything I've built, and you were just in the way." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. She took a step back, her hand brushing against the chest. "You're wrong," she said quietly. "The curse is real, and you've already disturbed it." For a moment, Edward hesitated, his confidence faltering. But then his expression hardened, and he lunged toward her. Eleanor acted quickly, using her knowledge of the library's secrets to her advantage. She grabbed one of the artifacts from the chest, a small, ornate mirror, and held it up, catching the faint light from the library windows. The reflection seemed to disorient Edward, and he stumbled, giving her the chance to slip past him. "You'll never get away with this," she said, her voice firm. "The treasure belongs to the monastery, and the books belong to the library. You've already lost, Edward." Edward's face twisted in rage, but before he could respond, a low, ominous hum filled the air, emanating from the chest. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble, and the fog swirled violently, as if the curse itself had been awakened. Edward froze, his eyes wide with fear, and Eleanor knew she had to act fast. With the chest in her arms, she turned and ran, the weight of the treasure and the stolen books pressing against her. The fog seemed to part before her, guiding her back toward the library. Behind her, Edward's shouts faded into the distance, swallowed by the growing hum of the curse. As she reached the library steps, Eleanor glanced back one last time. The oak tree stood silent and still, its branches reaching toward the sky like a warning. She knew the mystery wasn't over, not yet, but for now she had the treasure, the books, and the truth. And that was enough to face whatever came next. As the first light of dawn broke over Ravenswood, Eleanor stood at the entrance of the library, the stolen books cradled in her arms. The air was crisp, carrying with it the faint scent of dew and old paper. She stepped inside, the familiar creak of the wooden floorboards greeting her like an old friend. One by one, she returned the books to their rightful places, her fingers brushing against the spines as if to reassure them and herself that they were home. The treasure, however, was a different matter. With the chest securely in her possession, Eleanor made her way to the monastery on the outskirts of town. The monks greeted her with solemn gratitude, their voices low and reverent as they accepted the artifacts. "You've done a great service," the eldest monk said, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. "The curse has been lifted, but the past will always leave its mark." Back in Ravenswood, the townsfolk gathered to celebrate Eleanor's bravery. The library, once a place of eerie silence, now buzzed with life. Harold Murray offered a toast, his usual reclusive demeanor softened by the occasion. Margaret Dawes brought pastries from a cafe, her laughter ringing through the halls. Even Edward Hastings' absence was noted, but not mourned. His fate, whatever it might be, seemed a fitting end to his greed. Yet, as the festivities continued, Eleanor found herself drawn to the library's basement. The air was cooler there, the faint hum she had heard beneath the oak tree still lingering in the shadows. She descended the stairs, her flashlight cutting through the darkness, and paused at the entrance to the secret room. The books she had discovered there remained untouched, their spines gleaming faintly in the dim light. But something was different. A faint, eerie glow emanated from the far corner of the room, casting long, shifting shadows on the walls. Eleanor approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. The glow seemed to pulse, as if alive, and she couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching her. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the air, and for a moment she thought she heard a whisper, a voice too faint to make out, but unmistakably there. She stepped back, her mind racing. The curse was supposed to be broken. The treasure had been returned, the books restored, but as she stood there, the glow flickered and dimmed, leaving her in silence once more. Eleanor couldn't shake the unease that settled in her chest. The mystery of the vanishing librarian, the empty shelves, and the hidden treasure had been solved, or so she thought. As she climbed the stairs back to the main library, the faint hum followed her, a reminder that some secrets were never meant to be fully uncovered. The library was restored, the townsfolk were safe, and the curse had been lifted. But as Eleanor glanced back at the basement door, she couldn't help but wonder, was the curse truly gone? Or had she only scratched the surface of something far deeper, far darker? The library stood as it always had, its shelves filled, its halls alive with the whispers of stories yet to be told. But in the quiet moments, when the fog rolled in and the town slept, Eleanor would find herself drawn back to the basement, listening for the hum, watching for the glow. The mystery of Ravenswood was far from over, and Eleanor knew, deep down, that some truths were better left hidden. As the final chapter of this tale unfolds, let us revisit the key moments that shaped the mystery of the vanishing librarian. The empty shelves, once a haunting symbol of loss, now stand as a testament to Eleanor's determination. The hidden treasure, a relic of greed and betrayal, was returned to its rightful place, breaking the curse that had plagued Ravenswood for centuries. Edward Hastings, driven by desperation, revealed the darker side of human ambition, reminding us that some secrets come at a cost. Yet, as the dust settles, a deeper question lingers. The curse may have been lifted, but the past has a way of leaving its mark. The faint hum in the library's basement, the eerie glow that flickers in the shadows, these are not mere echoes of what once was. They are reminders that some mysteries are never fully solved, and some truths are better left undisturbed. Eleanor, though celebrated as a hero, cannot shake the feeling that she has only scratched the surface of something far more profound. The library, with its restored shelves and bustling halls, seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next chapter to unfold. And in the quiet moments, when the fog rolls in and the town sleeps, Eleanor hears it, a faint whisper, barely audible, yet impossible to ignore. The shelves are never truly empty, it says, sending a chill down her spine. This lingering mystery leaves us with a sense of unease, a reminder that the past is never truly buried. As the story of the vanishing librarian comes to a close, we are left to wonder, what other secrets lie hidden in the shadows of Ravenswood? What truths remain untold, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves? And so, as the final page turns, we are reminded that some mysteries are better left unsolved. The library stands, as it always has, a keeper of stories, both told and untold. But in the quiet corners, where the light does not reach, the whispers of the past continue to linger, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover their secrets. Sleep well, but remember, some mysteries are not meant to be solved. The shelves may be full, but the shadows are never truly empty. As the final whispers of this tale fade into the night, we turn to you, the curious minds who have followed Eleanor's journey through the shadows of Ravenswood. What do you think lies hidden in the library's darkest corners? What secrets might still linger beneath its ancient shelves? Share your theories in the comments below. Let's unravel the mysteries together. If you've been captivated by this dark, twisting story, don't miss out on more tales that will send shivers down your spine. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you're always the first to know when a new mystery unfolds. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember this: the world is full of stories waiting to be discovered, but not all of them are meant to be told. Sleep well, but remember, some mysteries are better left unsolved.